Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm Dan Keever. I am the founder and president of Evergreen Financial Marketing. And today I am joined by a guest that is a name you have probably seen, especially if you are on LinkedIn or X. Welcome, Thomas Kopelman. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited for this conversation.
So off the top, who is this webinar for? This is a how-to, very practical and tactical webinar on advisor marketing, especially in the world of personal brands. So the two people I think this is best for, number one is if you are an advisor who feels like you have low expectations of marketing, but you see it working for other people. Today, we're going to talk to someone who it is working for. The second one, we'll get into Tom, your backstory in a little bit. But for a lot of advisors, called the Gen 1 advisor, that 20 years ago, you started a company, maybe you were told to cold call, maybe you joined a business because you hated cold calling, went a different direction, but you're having trouble now with the next generation of advisors. You're not telling them to cold call, but what do they do to build their own books of business, to contribute to business development? I think this will be a really good resource. If you're not sure how to explain to them, you can send this along. Great resource, great marketing mind that is joining us today. So Tom, before we jump into the weeds, can you tell me a little bit about where you are today? Tell us about AllStreet Wealth and the trajectory you guys are on.
Yeah, so AllStreet Wealth is a few months past 3 years. So my story is I started a broker dealer, saw the problems with it, begged to try to find a new job, and basically begged Justin Castelli, who's an advisor a lot of people know, for a job. After a very long period of time, he gave in to my begging, and I was like, pay me basically $0 so I can just find my way into RIA world and learn. And I was there for a bit, and he was like, dude, start your own firm. Like, it makes no sense for you to be here. You're not getting anything out of this anymore. You're meant to be a business owner. And I was like, oh no, I'm 25. Like, I don't think I'm meant to be a business owner. Like, I turned 26 in a month. And he was like, no, like, I promise you it's going to be the best thing for you. And to his credit, he did tell me that day one he hired me that, like, you should be starting a business, but I'll kind of give you this bridge. So it was something I thought about, but I didn't think he would actually make me go do. So I didn't intend to start an RIA at all, right? I never even thought about being a business owner, but basically he was super nice. I got to bring over like $4,000 a month of client revenue. So at least, post expenses, I'm not digging into, cash reserves. I was still not married at the time. It was a good situation, and launched AllStreet, and we really just kind of caught fire. So like, it was funny. I was just going backwards today when I was talking with my wife, and it was like, okay, January 2 years ago, I basically made $15,000 a month. January last year, I made 30. January this year, I'll make about 70. So AllStreet is really,
That's
and that's
incredible.
me, that's post my team, post expenses. So we're basically at the point where we've crossed 1 million in revenue as a firm. We're at the point where we're doing over 100,000 a month in revenue. We'll probably do somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5 this year,
Mhm.
as a company in our basically third full year of running. So feel really good where we're at. And I think where all this comes down to is I credit all of it to social media, because I was the same as everybody else. I heard from, the Jarvises of the world and other people that social media doesn't work. And I actually don't think that's bad info. Social
Mhm.
media does not work for 99% of people, but it's also because they don't put in the time and the effort and do it well, right? If you're just going to
Mhm.
post 2 times a week on LinkedIn and share your company blog and then some random post, you're probably never going to convert anybody to becoming clients. But what I saw is, I'm like, man, I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm following some amazing people, and I'm learning so much from them. And I just was like, I think that could work for me. But every advisor was like, no, social media is for networking. It's not for getting clients. And I was like, I just don't think that's probably the truth. It might be the truth for you, but if it works in every other industry, why wouldn't it work in the one industry where it touches everybody's life, right? Like, money touches every facet of life, and it's a part of every person's life. And everybody either has to learn about it or they have to have somebody help them do it. And so I thought of, okay, great. I look at this industry and we're a sales industry. Most people have a bad taste in their mouth about
Mhm.
advisors. And it's because every advisor is trying to sell why you need to work with me. And my thought was, if there's a lot of people who need financial help, shouldn't I be able to attract those people? And as soon as I came to that realization, I was like, okay, well, how do you attract people? So you have like webinars, right? You have in-person seminars, you have social media, you have podcasts, etc. And I was like, well, I could either do seminars or I could basically give that to people over social media every single day repeatedly. And so I basically went in all in on social media, and that's basically what built my business. We still do get referrals, obviously. The hard part is like my firm, we specialize in working with 30 to 50-year-old entrepreneurs and executives. So our average client makes about $1 million a year. I don't know if you know many people who make $1 million a year, but they don't know that many people who make $1 million a year. So it's hard for them to refer because their friends that they've had for a long time might make a third of the money they make. And that's not a good fit for us. So we do have some business owners who give us quite a bit of referrals, but I found I actually prefer people who come in from social because they've known me for so long that when they come to that meeting, does Thomas have a service model that I'm looking for? It's not do I trust him? Do I need to figure all these things out? Like my trust gets built from all the education I do from social. Like even today, I met with a person who's over 100 million net worth. He's the CEO of a $1 billion business. He comes in, found me from social media, and like I have a ton of people. My biggest client I share with another firm is about 240 million net worth. He found me on Twitter, and people just don't think that exists, but like it does, and it really does.
Man, that's a lot to unpack for first question in the best way. It's funny because for those of you that don't know Evergreen as much, we serve people that I would say are very established. They're 20, 25, 30 years in, sometimes multiple generations in. And some of our smaller clients are in called the $300 million range. We serve a couple firms, they're in the $1 billion range. But the thing that they had in common when they met us is all of them were successful with little to no help from marketing. I'll quote one of our people who became a client at our prospect meeting. He told me they had just fired a marketing firm, spending like $5,000, $6,000 a month, not a single new piece of business or even discussion to show for it after about 6 months. And he's like, I feel like I just got divorced. And I'm asking you on a first date, and there's this voice in my head that's like, what are you doing? In terms of like the view of marketing is just so low. And I think one of the things that you touched on that I hear and we see working with our clients is consumability and value. Like if you make it too hard to reach out to things like I have to attend a seminar to get the value, which seminars work for some people, that's fine. But you talk about so much of marketing only works for like call it the 1% or the 10%. And there's some tweak that those people are doing that is just going well. And I would say the consumability and value are the things that we see being the biggest drivers of success. Your best conversations need to scale. And I'll use this comparison. It's like when you walk into a clothing store and like the salesperson makes a beeline for you. The first thing you do is like try and like tuck in the first clothing rag off to the corner, like trying to avoid the awkward pitch. But when you're like, hey, if you know what, I have a question, I'm going to reach out to that person. We're trying to make marketing really easy for like the unconfrontational enter your brand space, especially personal brands. And
I think I think that's important. I think the personal branding is what people don't understand. They think marketing is like I always use an example like marketing for Nike. Nike's marketing and our marketing is different. That is a company or a person, right? And I get like you might have the established firm, you're trying to draw people in the firm, but I'll tell you, I could take AllStreet off me, and people are going to follow me wherever I'm at. And when you have that realization, you realize like this is a person business. So what my marketing is personal branding. It's here's what I know. Here's all the things that you need to know. And so when you hit your pain point, you reach out to me, right? And so my thought is if I post the most and I'm the most educational and I never ask for anything in return, when somebody hits the pain points, like what typically happens for me is I've been running a business and all of a sudden my business just absolutely took off and I make so much money and I need help on tax planning and all the other things. I just want it to be that person thinks Thomas is the person who can solve my problem. I have to reach out to him. Like that is my only goal through marketing. And so people think that means I'm in people's DMs, I'm messaging people. I don't do any of that. People follow me. They go to my profile. They go to allstreetwealth.com. They apply to work with us. We vet them and then we book a meeting if they're a good fit.
So it's kind of funny because a lot of what you're talking about in the best way is counterintuitive to like if you Google how to create a marketing strategy, none of this fits. We're talking about a very long runway to build trust, right? We're talking about trust me with your life savings. And in some cases, especially for someone like you where the net worth is often higher, they're usually working with somebody. Maybe it's like a wirehouse kind of advisor. and they have to actually separate a relationship to join you. Like the level of trust and value perceived has to be super high.
Agreed.
How do you help bridge the gap from just call it overwhelming value, asking for nothing, just overwhelming value on the content with call it cues, triggers, even like a pathway? How do people know when and how to get in touch with you? Is it just kind of like, well, you know what? They can go through my profile, they can go through the website, like it's self-evident enough, or do you have to per se engineer a little bit more of that ecosystem for them?
I don't think I do. I think in certain ways I can by talking about like, I'll have a post at the beginning of the year, like, here's what we're doing with clients at the beginning of the year. Like, if you're a business owner and you're not thinking about projections this year, quarterly taxes, what you're going to owe above that, I don't know how you can run your business well. And so there might be like bringing up pain points and what we're doing for clients. And then they're like, oh, my team isn't doing that. Like maybe I need to reach out, but I'm never like, oh, I go to John's Twitter and I'm like, dude, your advisor is doing something stupid because of X, Y, and Z. Like I just haven't found that to be a good strategy. I found that I don't want to convince anybody they need me. I want everybody to know they need me. And so like I'll just educate, I'll talk about the things that we know. And pretty much everybody I sit down with is like, you talk about things that my advisors never talked about, or you talk about things I know I need to do, but I don't know how to do it. And for most of my clients, they're amazing earners, right? If you make $1 million+ a year, you're an amazing earner. Just keep doing that and have a thought partner that's going to help you make all the right financial decisions. And so as long as I just help educate people and they're like, I'm not doing these things, my advisor isn't doing these things, eventually they're going to be like, oh my gosh, I just got my tax bill and it's so much higher than I thought. I need to start taking this seriously. So I just like that they hit their point where they're like, I need Thomas on my team, not where I'm like, oh, here's what I do and here's why I'm better than them and here's why you should leave them and all this. Like, I'll let them reach that realization. And maybe that does come a little bit from the fact that we have a really good lead flow.
Mm-hmm.
Like we bring on 4 households a month. We almost always have the next 12 to 16 households booked ahead of us.
Mm.
And that creates a way
That
where,
is rare in the advice.
yeah, I didn't know that, to be honest. Like I was told that a fast growing RIA is 12 new households a month. Like that is a killer RIA. We could bring on 70 probably a year if we wanted to. We can't sustain that. We can
Mm-hmm.
sustain 4 a month until eventually we'll kind of hit our workload, our max capacity. And then we kind of, hand off lower level clients and fill them. But that gives me the ability to be like, when I sit down with prospects, it's get to know them. And then it's here's how we help people. Here's our process. Here's what a plan looks like. Here's what it looks like working with us on a yearly basis. If that's what you're looking for, great. If not, totally fair. Go on your own way. And so like, I'm not convincing anybody. And I think a lot of advisors, you feel that, right? Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels desperate. They need me. And I think people feel that.
Mm-hmm. So I think the theme that I keep hearing here is it's not just the consistency of showing up, it's knowing the pain points it's having. I would say an ability to beat the writer's block when it comes to a lot of your content too is written, obviously. So when you talk about, hey, my ideation process, you're posting all the time. And for most advisors, if they had to write 2 posts a week, it would probably never get done and their heads would hurt and they'd go back to doing something else. What for you helps you A, identify really good topics, and B, alarms, and B, understand like how to do that without getting burnt out?
Yeah. I think this is a hard one for me because it honestly feels so easy to me to come up with content. Like I just look and I'm like, look at your last week as an advisor. Like, what are the things that you talked about? Right? Like, there is your content. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it literally is that simple. And you can even make it more simple. And I say, somebody will be like, I can't come up with content. I'm like, okay, let's talk about cash. What are 20 things that you talk about cash, right? We can talk about how much to have an emergency fund. We can talk about budgeting. We can talk about different forms of budgeting. We can talk about, managing your surplus, irregular income, et cetera. And then you can take every post you just thought about and turn it into like a list. You can turn it into a negative. You can, and then you do debt, and then you do investing, and then you do retirement, and then you do business owners, and then you do insurances, and you do estate planning. And so there's like an unlimited amount of things. But in the beginning, yes, it is a little bit harder. I think because I started this like 6 years ago. I was still newer to financial advising and learning real financial planning. And so what I was doing is I was saying, what do I need to learn? And I'm going to turn that into content.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was learning things and I was like, I'm going to read it. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to write it. I'm going to speak about it on a podcast. And it made me a way better advisor because like I do, I don't know, like 25 probably plus social media posts a week on Twitter, for example. And, that is a lot to do, but it's just become easy because I'm helping and doing so much financial planning that it's so easy to just say, what did I help clients with? What are the main pain points I see over and over and over again, and talk about it. And a lot of my social media is repurposed. So now that I've been doing it for 7 years, every post I have is not new. It might be improved, but I bet 80% of what I post has been posted before. And, I talk about this all the time, but like Justin Welsh is a great creator. One of his best lines is, show me your best content, not your new content. Right. And I look like Twitter wise, I have 33,000 followers. Last year I had 15. The year before I had 7,500. The year before I had 800. So if I don't post my best content from 24 and 25, more than 50% of my audience has never seen it. And then people are like, well, what if those people are like, oh, I saw that, I get bored of it? Two things. One, if they remember your content from a year ago, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. That is a win for how much they see. And then the other part about it is, if somebody's followed me for a few years and they're one, bored of my content, or two, they haven't worked with me yet, they probably were never going to be anyways.
That's funny. It is one of the things that we say frequently to our clients is that your best content is you're not coming up with it, you're documenting it. And obviously, like with specific stories and things, you need to be careful at times. But at the same time, if good marketing is a mirror, then what we're attempting to do is hold up a mirror of the situations and the decisions your clients are making. And you are, per se, you are not the hero, you're the guide, right? They are the hero, they're the person who is making the decision, confronting a gap in their plan, things like that. One specific thing, 'cause I love what you're talking about. Hey, just start with like, pick a topic and pick your main talking points, pick the conversations you're normally having. You're also dealing with people that are not finance 101. Is there a gap where you're talking about, hey, there's specific topics that I need to focus on more for the high net worth crowd? Or are you also kind of saying at the same time, you'd be shocked what people don't know if no one says it? Is it kind of a mix of both?
Yeah. So I think I was talking to an advisor at Future Proof, and he was like, man, like I'm struggling on social media. Like I can't come up with new stuff. And I was like, okay, tell me about the audience. He's like, I work with teachers in California. And he's like, there's only so much to talk about their retirement system, et cetera. I'm like, but what about everything else? What about, other, backdoor Roths or Roth IRAs? What about planning for a house? What about managing cash flow? What about insurance? What about estate planning? He's like, yeah, but that's not unique to them. And that's where I was like, I think you're missing the point that you talk about the things they need to know plus what's unique to them. And so when I think about serving a high net worth crowd, a lot of them aren't doing backdoor Roths. A lot of them don't understand Roth versus traditional. A lot of them don't understand, solo 401ks. But then I weave in more of the complex stuff. We can talk PTED, and we can talk irrevocable trusts, and we can talk about mega backdoors and blah, blah, blah. But they do still don't know. They really don't know the basics. So I just have to weave in, and I don't really use a lot of acronyms. So like, people get mad at me that I call tax professionals CPAs. I've never met somebody who calls their tax professional anything other than a CPA. So I use those words. So I might use words that are incorrect in the advisory space, but are correct in a consumer space. And you just realize that from working with people that they use that word. So I should probably write in that word.
Mm-hmm. It is funny because most of our advisors, their target is, call it minimum $1 to $2 million in households. Not necessarily that they won't take lower, but in terms of the advisors that we're working with at these firms, they're trying to get the higher complexity cases. And it is funny because I think the thing that, there are absolutely topics that separate. This is what you've heard from your existing lower service advisor. These are the things we're introducing that might be new thoughts or gaps that we frequently find in people who've already had advisors. But I'll also say is that a lot of these people are just so busy that autopilot is the worst enemy in their financial plan. Like you talk about, well, they don't know the difference between Roth and traditional. I think most advisors, they assume more people know the jargon, but if they've never taken time to explicitly research it or have had a good enough advisor to explain the topic in front of them, they're on autopilot because they've got 100 other things. Especially like a business owner, they don't have Boomer hat they can wear in that category.
Yeah.
But I because having followed your content personally, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, that feels like 101 if you're in the advisory space, but why does that have 67 shares? That's the kind of stuff. And it is funny. I'll just note for anyone listening, the backstory of how and why I invited Thomas onto the thing today was for every one of our clients, we have idea boards where people send us like, hey, that's a good post or that's a good article. It's a good video. I'd love to do something like that in our tone. We do interviews with our clients and we recircle back to some of these idea boards. And after, I think it's like a 6-month window where I started seeing Thomas's name come up a bit, I was like, why don't we just sit down and ask him what he does? Because our clients seem to love this stuff. And it's funny because Tom, obviously you're on the younger end of the industry, especially if we're talking averages. And our
Yep.
advisors who are 45, 50, 60, some of them closer to 70, sitting on like 9-figure books of business. Like I want to talk about what that guy's talking about. So it is just kind of
I
funny.
like that though, right? Because we all have something to learn from other people, right? Like I have great people I listen to and I got to learn from on financial planning and other things. And then like I've clients who are different age ranges that I get to learn different things from them. I mean, a lot of the older advisors are not willing to learn. And like where I started at a broker dealer out of college, everybody at the company told me, like, I was like, I need to get started on social media. That is the way to grow. I believe in fee only financial planning. People pay me a fee, not selling products. And they basically were like, you're wrong. That's not how it's going to be. This is how we've done it forever, blah, blah, blah. Nobody was receptive. And now I have my case study of, okay, I was right. But none of them there were willing to learn or adapt. And so I think the cool thing is you have a group then of people who are like, sure, I've done it this way forever, but now I'm realizing it's a new world. And who better to learn from than like somebody like me who I was brand new. I didn't know what way was the right way. I tried something out. It worked. And my strategy isn't the only one, right? I look at James Knoll and Dave Zoller and, there's some people who do good stuff on LinkedIn. Like I learned from them as well. Like I don't pretend to know about, YouTube. I'm not as good as Dave or James over there, but I get to learn from them as well. Just like Dave asked me questions about how I do things differently on Twitter than him.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of people who either assume things are wrong or fall off the wagon, one of the things that I find is that marketing is a lot like investing. It's time in market is the strategy, right? And let's talk time, expectations, ROI, because obviously you've hit a point marketing wise where it's a bit of a critical mass. You have wildly predictable lead flow. You're also call it year 6 of this, year 3 of AllStreet's version of it. Can you talk a little bit like if an advisor, let's just say they have a worn, strong network in person, real relationships, but their digital space, it's going to blow a layer of dust off it, right? What kind of expectations of like, hey, this is what a successful compounding marketing strategy looks like? What would you say timeline to really start seeing some traction?
I would say a year personally. And I think people hate hearing that number, but my answer is time's going to pass either way. And, you're not going to start doing that much. Like when I first started, I did a blog a week and 3 posts on LinkedIn. And that took me so much time, like, because I was so insecure about my writing.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to turn my blogs into like perfect writing. And then I really realized that I'm better off writing in my own voice because now when people meet with me, they listen to my podcast, they read, and I speak the same way I do all those things. So I found that to be really helpful. But like that took me more time to do that in the beginning than now. I have at least 3 tweets every single day. I have 2 to 3 threads every single week. I have a YouTube video. I have a podcast. I have a newsletter. Like I do all of that in like a couple hours a week now because I just took the time and built up to it. So like at the end of year 1, I started to get a few prospects a month. And then basically by the end of the second year, I was getting like 7. By the end of the third year, I was getting probably 7 to 10, but they were higher income. And then I maybe moved to like 10 to 12 higher income. And now I basically probably on average get about 15 to 20 a month of prospects. Most of them are qualified that we'll meet with. And they're all just significantly higher income, higher net worth than they were a year ago. But every year my content has started to aim more towards the knowledge base and the pain points of those people. But it did take a lot of time to get there. But like all your other marketing strategies are going to be like short term, right? Like I'm going to call people, I'm going to go to an event, but that's over. You have no compounding from that. Like for me, my goal has been, how do I stay active for the longest period of time? Because I actually believe breaks from social media are bad. I believe mentally they're good. I've never once had a break from social media because I'll at least schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So like when I go look at my Twitter, I probably have the next 6 months scheduled. And at one point last year, I had 15 months ahead of Twitter scheduled because I just sit down for an afternoon and say, how much could I possibly get done tweets wise in one afternoon versus like this morning I'm going to think of something, I'm going to get out of it. Like I found that the best thing for me is to get in a groove.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually it just starts happening, and I'm really thinking of things and I schedule them. And that has been by far the best thing for me. So I typically like once a quarter spend an afternoon scheduling the next 3 to 6 months.
Mm-hmm. So let's do with our last couple minutes here. We'll do kind of like a speed round, couple things that clients sent in that they were curious about. Number one is obviously you've talked about marketing like it's been fun and though it's been hard work, especially the self-conscious part at the beginning was really funny. I hear that all the time. How much of marketing do you think requires like a good personality versus, hey, you know what, we just have a good process and anyone can do it?
Whew, that's a tough one. I think it matters a lot because I think that there are some people who personalities on social media is like absolutely pushing people away. Like, but my thought is like, I'm not going to be negative. I'm not going to fight with people. I'm not going to go argue with other people. I'm not going to hop on other advisors' posts and show why I'm better than them because people think that those are winning things. But like, who wants to work with somebody who's negative, who complains? Like, I personally don't want to talk about politics. I don't want to talk about anything like that because one, I'm a very middle person. Like, I don't have that strong of viewpoints on these type of things. I see a lot of gray. I'm not a black and white person, but like I think your personality does matter. Like I act exactly how I am in real life on social media. I think it took me a while to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like I thought my role goal was how can I be the most polished person? But then like you're hopping on a call with me and the nicest thing I'm wearing is a quarter zip. Like I'm not going to be in a suit. Like I'm not perfectly polished. My emails to my clients are to the point, bullet points or quick writing. Like I'm not going to chat GPT to write a good thing. And so like I want that to show through my social media. Cause again, like we are attracting people and you want to sit down to a meeting and be like, I'm excited to meet with Thomas today. And I want to be excited to meet with my client today. I don't want to be fake. And I just want to be able to be me. And so my social media and how I talk has to match that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also funny. One of our clients, he's been with us about 5 years now. And it's just simply like, especially when you talk about the high net worth crowd, you obviously have a high level of engagement on a lot of your content. But a lot of prospects we find in the high net worth crowd are not prolific commenters and sharers. They're not always like big fans, especially if they're not already a client. And one of our clients been with us about 5 years. He had a prospect reach out, VP, massive company, probably $9 or $10 million net worth. And it was this thing of, I've been watching your content for 9 months. Never liked a single
You
one.
never see them, right? Like all my clients, they don't comment, they don't like, they don't retweet, they just lurk.
Yep.
And it
Lurker.
makes sense, right? Because the only people who really do that are I understand the value of commenting on other people's stuff. Unless they have like a really important question or something, they're just gonna read. Like I don't spend much time commenting on other than like friends of mine. And so it is important to know that like just because you're not getting engagement from your ideal client, like I would say of my 90 households I work with, none of them comment on any of my stuff before I worked with them. I've never even seen their name.
Our one advisor said my mom is the one who's going to be the one commenting.
Yeah, or advisors or somebody else, right?
So on one hand, obviously, like the prospect example, that's the case study for familiarity matters, and especially we do a ton of video, we do virtual interviews at Evergreen, so it's always like your face, your voice. My question to you though is, when we're talking about, well, if our target audience isn't necessarily the one commenting, sharing, things like that, how do you help drive engagement outside of, call it, your existing audience? Is it algorithm games? Like what have you found that drives the most visibility, audience expansion?
I think it's all about nailing how to get people interested in what you're talking about. So like what I found is short form content is how you stay active and long form content is how you win people over, because anybody can go to chat GPT and come up with 3 lines. Where I win is I'm like, oh, I just had a thread that got, the last tweet, 40 tweets in, had 40,000 people read all the way through it. Like that's where I feel like I win. And the way you get people there is that first post, like I hook them into why they have to read it. And so like, if you're new to social media, you could see like, oh, that looks gimmicky, or like, there'll be the people like, hey, I serve the ultra high, the top 1% of 30-year-olds. Here's 5 things I wish everybody knew. It is like everybody knows that they don't love having to do that, but they know how you get people interested is super important. And so like what I found is really working hard on that. So if I have the best thread ever on tax planning, but my first tweet is terrible, nobody's going to read it. And so I need to spend a lot of time being like, how do I grab people to be like, oh, I got to stop and I got to read this. And that's how you win. I don't think there's really any games there. I think early on you have to do a lot of engaging because most of your followers come because you left good comments on other people
Yeah.
because there's more views there. But now as I get going, like my goal literally is just how do I educate people as much as I can? How am I as informative and how do I add as much value? And how do I craft in a way that people feel like they have to read it and learn from me? And I think that's how you win.
It is funny. I'll note on the hook question, one of the things that we've seen, especially on LinkedIn recently for our clients, we do personal brands for every one of our clients. And you would have posts that would be like 7 likes, but if their average impressions for like their profile, like 400 or 500 posts, like 7 likes and 22,000 impressions. Great hook. Or
Mm-hmm.
like 13 likes, 49,000 impressions. Great hook. And it's funny because like writing hooks is not an exact science. And so it's like investing. You're diversifying because you hope you get something good, right? But it is funny because those moments, I know the first time our clients see that happen, which is hard to predict sometimes, it opens their eyes to how many people that were outside of my audience just saw that.
Yeah.
And then
And
how,
that's where you win, right? You want to get outside of your audience because you want to grow. Like the last year I did 30 million impressions on Twitter. And in January of this year, I've done 14 million because I had, I
compounding.
had, a, I had a thread this month that got, I think like 5+ million and it had like $700,000 or so, or 600,000 or 700,000, on the last tweet. And I didn't even remember scheduling it. I scheduled it like 4 months ago. I like looked and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like absolutely blowing up.
Yeah. It is funny when you start looking at like the 12-year month in review or year in review, it's like 2 to 3 posts will have 50 to 60% of your visibility and those kinds of things. That's just the way the game works in the best way. It lets you get outside your existing network so well. I know that there's probably 16 other questions that we could ask, but we're going to cap this at 30 minutes, help it fit inside people's lunch break, so to speak. Thomas, I know that you're an advisor who serves clients. I also know that you have a course for advisors who want to learn marketing. You and a couple of your industry friends put it together. I want you to pitch it because I bought it, loved it, and I think a lot of people would benefit from it.
Yeah, thanks, man. So yeah, I basically created a course with my co-founder Trayden, who has like a community for advisors, and he's really, really good on this type of stuff. And then Rachel Camp, who's another great creator. So yeah, it's just allstreetacademy.com/advisors. And I think it's really unique because we take everybody through like how we think about marketing to like all the execution. So there's like, I don't even remember, like 11 or 12 chapters where each of us speaks for like 10 to 20 minutes. And then we all sit down and go over that topic, like how we think about personal branding or how we execute X, Y, and Z. So I think it's like 3 or 4 hours long. We've had over 100 people do it. Everybody's been really excited about it. And so it was one way where like I get a lot of questions from advisors, like, can I have one-on-ones and whatever? And I used to do them, but time has just become so limited. I'm like, how do I put out, the one to many and try to solve that problem?
And I will say it's one of those things like it's a good course. It's not a cheap course. But if you invest the money and you set aside the time, it'll give you a roadmap, not just of how to think about it, but conceptually, but how to execute it as far as process workflows, things like that. Also, just put in here, it's a great resource if you are a Gen 1 advisor that just feels out of your depth. Hey, Gen 2, we need to work on business development. You've got a great personality. You're a great communicator. I need someone else who's good at this to show you how. I think this would be a great investment for your Gen 2s. Also, just say as we close up here at Evergreen, we have designed this agency from the ground up for financial advisors and the relational nature of the business. And so a lot of the stuff Thomas talks about, both on this call and in the course, there's a lot of alignment in what we do at Evergreen. And I would say the main thing that I would just point out is that you've been doing this 20, 25, 30 years. You don't need scripts to talk about these topics. You could talk shop all day if you wanted. And so what we've designed is a virtual interview model where once a month you sit down with our team, planned list of topics, and we talk shop. You sign off after that. We get videos, we get written content like social posts Tom's talking about. We have blogs, newsletters. We basically extrapolate your entire marketing strategy for company and personal brand from a single 30-minute interview a month that is your face, your voice. So in this world, when you're talking about relational marketing, you're right. 80, 90% of what's out there isn't working. It's frustrating, but follow the people who are doing this well And I think whether you're 30 years into your career or 5 years into your career, have an expectation that your brand is an asset that will compound and it's worth investing in, even if it's just a little bit of traction in that year one conversation. So thank you, Tom, for joining us today. I'm sure there is a ton of other ways that people could get connected. I would definitely recommend, if you're on LinkedIn or Twitter, give Tom a follow, and you can fill your own idea board for good posts, and you don't have to come up with them for yourself anymore. So easy enough win. Thank you for joining us, and have a great one.